The purpose of this group is to put people in a room together that would normally never be in a room together.
I used to shy away from the property manager. I learned that when you get up to a certain number of units.
Wow, that was a good feeling. So I think that was 2012, 2013.
There are investors who are my clients that haven't even bought it yet.
Tonight's guest, I don't know if anybody ever has the opportunity to interview their mentor, right? So this is a very special interview for me. So I'm gonna tell a quick story before we get started. 2012, I'm a guy working a W-2 job, aspiring to be in real estate. I read in the back of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, if you want to get started in real estate investing, go to your local NOREA. So I go to a couple meetings. This particular meeting, they got a guy with his partner. They telling the story about how, they own all these properties. They got 40 units. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, man, these dudes the same age as me. So walk up to them, have a conversation with them, fast forward, over 10 years later, that was Michael Meredith and Andre Lewis, who we have here today. So you're in it for a treat. So tonight, we're gonna cover pretty much everything that everybody is interested in this room. We're gonna cover raising capital. We're gonna cover recruiting, retaining, and optimizing talent. We're gonna cover buying apartments and investing in flips, and how to save money and how to avoid losing money, and how to eat it when you do lose money, right? Right. So without further ado, this is first meeting, so I want to make sure when we clap it up for him, we clap it up for him loud, because this is going to be an excellent meetup. We only got 45 minutes to get 10 years worth of knowledge, so everybody, I want to introduce Andre Lewis to the Westbank Real Estate Investors.
Y'all making me feel like a superstar.
Nah, man, it's all love, man. So first of all, Andre, how did you even get started in real estate investing? We're gonna move quick because we want to get to the good stuff, but we still want to hear your origin, because somebody in the room right now has that same story.
Okay. Can everyone hear me in the back? Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so how I got in real estate back in 2000. So originally I'm from Alabama. So the accent that y'all hear is Alabama 100%, okay? All right, so I got in real estate when I graduated from college, which was Tuskegee University. I got a job working at Chevron in Covington, Louisiana. That was back in like 2008. So I started working there as an engineer, and my partner Mike and myself, we both worked at Chevron, and we always felt like God put this dream in our heart to do some big stuff. So, all right, we good? So now everyone really hears me right now. All right, perfect. All right, so back in 2010, just started diving into books, your Rich Dad, Poor Dad, different things like that. And in 2011, we decided to purchase our first property, which was a Fourplex in Chalmette, Louisiana. So that was our actual first property. Now, do you want me to leave it there, or you want me to just talk about where we at right now?
You go a little bit faster. So from that Fourplex,
okay,
what did we scale to today?
Okay, all right, good deal. So from that Fourplex, which was in 2011, fast forward to where we at 10, 11 years. Currently right now, it's just started with me and my partner Mike, but currently right now we own 3 different companies. We own a development company, a property management company, and a construction company. Between all the different companies, we have like around 35 employees. On the real estate side, we currently own and manage 400 units, and we're about to close on another 116 in the next 60 days. Good. So total 500 units, $30 to $35 million in assets.
Good. So for the person that was where you were in 2011, right, to where you are now, what does that journey look like from step one? So if I want to get to where you are now, what are those early steps? What are those techniques and approaches? What did those look like to get to where you are now?
All right, very, very good question. The first step, which I'm a firm believer on, self-development. So educate yourself. I mean, that's the first step. From that perspective there, that gives you that confidence, to go to the next level.
And what type of education? What you talking about?
So for me, I like two-pronged approach. Like, I'm not the one who's gonna say, read 100% business books and real estate books, because in my personal opinion, you got to first get your mind right. So for me, the spiritual books, the personal development books, with a mixture of the business books where you actually learn the technicalities of it, I think that's the perfect blend of books to read. And then from the education perspective, events like this where you networking, you're finding mentors and things like that. And third but not least, you have to take action. I mean, you can do step one, you can do step two, but you have to take action, and y'all taking action right now being at this group. Y'all taking action right now, listen to myself in a meal. And you just got to feed in that and just take that next step. For us on that first Fourplex, I was on my way, because I used to work offshore. I was on my way home from a hitch. I called Mike and I said, yo, dude, let's buy a property. And then he'll like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then like, what do we do? And then I like, let's call a mortgage broker. And like the first mortgage broker we called, it was a lady, and you're going to come across these naysayers. I mean, This lady was rude as, excuse my language, rude as hell, right? Yeah. But, man, she ain't going to stop us. This train going to keep on going. Right. So then we called another mortgage broker, a guy named David Carter with Southwest Fund in D.C., the Southwest Fund in Metairie. I mean, when we talked to this dude, like, we thought we was freaking Donald Trump, because he just boosted us up. Right. But, like, we literally spent, like, 30 minutes asking them all the questions in the world in regards to real estate. Yeah. And like I said, it just gave us more and more confidence.
So tell me about acquisition. So that's the financing part.
Right.
So to get from the Fourplex to where we are now, what type of acquisition approaches, because we got wholesalers in the room. So if I want to build up to 500, I could use wholesalers. What's some other acquisition techniques that y'all use to get to where y'all at now? All right, so of course, wholesalers, so y'all know what to do to find deals. Now, when you're at the level I'm at, where you're looking for the larger multifamilies, a lot of it comes from the networking, because when you're looking at these 50, 100 units, and these 50 and 100 units, can y'all hear me back there? Are we good? All right. So when it comes to larger, it's really a networking play at that level. However, I would say this, our first larger apartment complex, which was a 26-unit apartment complex, how I found that one is, y'all know what it is, drive for dollars. So I seen this rinky-dink for rent sign, which let me know, okay, this may be a mom and pop operation. I called the for rent sign, and and the 26 unit, it looked like a straight war zone, I ain't gonna lie. So like, I called that for rent sign, called the owner, and just like y'all already know, you got to wheel and deal and just ask. And that was actually our first foray into multifamily, was a drive for dollars play. But from there, we grow and get more complicated processes when it comes to acquisition. But like, that was our first place. So our first apartment complex was from a drive for dollar deal. So when we talking, that was the drive for dollars. After y'all made that acquisition, what was the lessons learned once y'all took it down and acquired?
The first apartment complex?
Yeah, what was the lessons learned from that?
The first one I'll say is, very good question. So I'll say this, one of the biggest lessons learned, and this even goes to your first single family, is like knowing your numbers. Like, I'm just a huge component of really knowing how much money you're spending and knowing what your true profits are, okay? And not to get too technical, but just for a flipper, for instance, right? You guys may think, or gals, I'm sorry, you may think that, okay, I got $100,000 sales price, and all in with my construction holding costs, I may be at like 60 grand. But I also want y'all to start taking it to another level and think about, okay, if I net out $40,000, 100 grand minus 60, that's $40,000. But I want y'all to take it to another level. Okay, if it takes between the time I buy that property and the time I sell it, if it takes me 3 months to sell it and make this 40 grand, you take that 40 grand divided by 3 and seeing like the time of money. Compared to that same property, if it takes you 8 months, 12 grand versus a month versus 5 grand a month, that's a totally different mindset when you like underwriting your deals. Because what I see a lot of people do is they really don't value their time. Like, everyone always just look at the profit. But what I want to encourage y'all to do is not just the profit is absolutely important, but you gotta also put in there the time as well too, because it's some indirect things that's involved with sitting on projects too long. Opportunity costs, where your stress level is, where your mental capacity is. And I'm not even talking about money and contractors and everything. I'm simply talking about those other things that most people don't think about. So, you know, I went on a tangent for real. Back to the apartment complex, is just knowing your numbers is a real big one. And I'll say,
Hey, tell me this, what, knowing your numbers, what tools that y'all use to try to track those numbers? And I can tell you right now, seeing him and his partner in front of an Excel sheet with a keyboard is like watching Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles on a piano, just how graceful and accurate and technical they are. So in addition to Excel, what else are y'all using to crunch those numbers and stay on pace with budget with the project?
yeah, I mean, of course, you got your standard account software is QuickBooks, which I highly recommend you just, from the very beginning of your operation, you always third party that out, whether it's a virtual assistant or a bookkeeper here locally. So, but everyone knows that if I was in you guys' shoe, or you're a newbie or even a veteran, yeah, it's Excel, but in particular to Excel, I'm a big proponent on scorecards. And for everyone that doesn't know what a scorecard is, it's a document that you use that you track the 3 to 5 most important factors in running your business. And ideally, you want those metrics to be what you call a leading indicator, where it's something that you can control on a weekly basis. Now, you don't even have to do this in Excel. This can be a simple, you can write the numbers down, but just training your mind just to focus on 3 to 5 most important things with your business, whatever it is so important. So a prime example is somebody may thinking, okay, let me just track my revenue on a weekly basis. That's not a good indicator to track on a weekly basis, because by the time you find out how much money you made, it's several different things that you could have done. So revenue is what you call a lagging indicator. So you got leading, lagging indicator. Lagging indicator are like profits, revenue, closing a deal, things like that. If you're a wholesaler in deal, that's a lagging indicator. A leading indicator is how many sellers that I talk to. If it takes 10 sellers to close one deal and I want to close 3 deals for the month, what does that mean? I got to talk to 30 sellers. And that 30 sellers is what you track on a weekly basis to try to drive your revenue or however your end game.
I want to drop a resource in on that one. Traction by Gino Wickman is an excellent book that talks about scorecards and tracking and how to manage your business on that. How did those scorecards and tracking those revenues, how did that apply to that first apartment complex?
The first, so let me be super clear. This is something over the last 2 or 3 years where I got super tight on. So I wish I had it then, but if I can think about that first apartment complex, what really made that project a success. Okay, so this is the nugget from the first apartment complex. The nugget from the first apartment complex is literally me and my partner Mike. We serve as the owner, the general contractor, the property manager, all above. Okay, and I was talking to Kurt earlier, another guy we just met, and you hear different stories on real estate developers, career path, and it's several different ways to skin a cat. But for me and Mike in particular, like I mentioned, we have the ownership development company, the property management company where we manage our properties, and we have a general construction company that actually does work for our properties and other people. And I'm a proponent of and I tell everyone, getting in the trenches and just learning the business. So for that first apartment complex in particular, by us just really doing it all and learning it, all the ins and outs, the lessons learned from everything, it just made us that tight as a businessman to maneuver and strategize and do things like that. So when I say that, don't take it like we were painting walls or doing flooring and everything like that. No, that's not the case at all. I'm simply saying on the project management level, I was managing the subs. That was our first employee that we hired when we took that apartment complex. She was working under our umbrella where she was dealing with the tenants, the back office, accounting-wise, building up processing systems for that. So, that 26 unit really stretched us to really truly become an enterprise, and that's where we're at today. based on that experience.
Good. So what was, because I want to get into the development side too. What was the exit on that first one? How did y'all exit?
The 26 unit?
Yeah.
So technically we still own that one, but that's a really good question. So we purchased that one for $700,000. No, I'm sorry. We purchased that one for $700,000. We put between $300 to $400 in it, and a couple years back we refinanced the debt and pulled some cash out. But when it appraised for like 1.7. So that was a situation where we bought it right, of course, but also by us owning all the verticals and managing all the verticals, we were able to make plays where, when I say plays, strategies and moves, where we were really able to maximize the equity in that particular deal.
What was, before we move to development, what assumptions you went into with that deal that you ended up learning about apartment complexes that you take away and move? What's the lessons learned from that you add to the new projects that y'all going through right now?
All right, so of course I mentioned already the accounting, just knowing the numbers. Really understanding, and this is for any person that renovates or do anything, like really understanding, like, if I invest this dollar in this particular asset or whatever, to the best of your ability, try to quantify the return, right? So this is a Class C property, right? $700, one bedroom, monthly rent. I never stayed in a one bedroom, unit, now or even when I was growing up. So I can't come to this apartment complex with a middle class suburban mindset, because for this demographics in particular, what they're looking for is totally different what I'm looking for. So it's up to you to learn your market, and when you get to that price point, $700 to $1,200, really these individuals, they most likely live in paycheck to paycheck, but they're really looking for one owner that cares. They want a durable unit. Like, it doesn't have to be super fancy. They want a durable, of course, nice. And then third but not least, is when it comes to work orders and things like that, getting them addressed. So with that mindset, when you come in and renovate a unit, that helps you make better decisions, knowing that, like, I don't have to come in here and put granite, laminate floors, everything is like that, because for this particular target market, that's not what they value the most. You understand what I'm saying? So that was a big lesson learned going through that experience there when it comes to multifamily.
And what resources y'all use to do that type of research on the front end, like far as rent amounts, far as amenities, because you could lose money on adding the wrong amenities for the wrong type of tenant.
Yep.
So what resources did y'all use on the front end and still use to this day to do market research on these properties?
I think a lot of it, so currently where we're at right now, we have a lot of good historical data, but if you're new in multifamily, just really a matter of course, doing comps, looking at comparable apartment complex, but most importantly, like I said, acting like you're a tenant for another apartment complex and sizing up your competition. If you in that $700,000 price point, and within a 5-mile radius, just go to every single one of them apartment complexes and size them up so you can learn, okay, what this target market is looking for, what my competitors are offering rather. So when you look at your budget, you can really, really be diligent on how you spend those funds.
Good stuff. So if I'm trying to get into multifamily right now, I'm in this room. So definitely networking with wholesalers, definitely networking with people that sell apartments. If I got to, knock on the door, let the man know, or the woman know I'm interested in buying this property, take the for rent sign off, and start wheeling and dealing, right? So tell us about development. So on the construction and development side, multifamily is one thing. So on the development, what's your style with underwriting deals on the development side? So you got pro formas on multifamily, you got cash flow multifamily, but development, it's a whole period where there is no cash flow.
Right.
So what's your approach on underwriting development projects? So for this room, maybe flips, maybe larger units. So what's your approach on underwriting those?
All right, and for me to answer that correct, when we talk about development, are you referring to buying wholes or for sale?
For sale.
Okay, for sale. So my underwriting process on development and that's what you call a speculative development, where you building it or renovating it to sell off. So for a speculative development, Of course, I think everybody's pretty familiar with calculating your ARV or your after repair value, right? So you start at the top there, and then you got your purchase and your renovation costs or new construction costs. But what a lot of people miss out on is what you call soft costs, okay? And soft costs are things such as, your closing fees, attorney fees, your holding costs, which is your insurance, taxes, your interest, and then whatever contingency that you want to put in place. So it just starts off with, like, really to the best of your ability, creating an itemized budget where you can really see what your true costs are. And then you got to make some assumptions. Like, so if a contractor is telling me 3 months it's going to take to renovate a property, I'm off the top baking in 6 months. It's just that history or experience, right, as you continue, as you gain. And you can do this right now on a single family house. Like, if you have a $100,000 single family, the same principles for a single family home is the same principles we're using on this new apartment complex. It's probably have like an $8 million budget. It's just the same line items where it's just bigger, more zeros, but it's the same fundamentals. And be conservative on your figures. Like, I lesson learned, if you ask me about one of my biggest lessons learned, I'll tell y'all the story on that one. But, like, falling in love with these projects, man, can really get you in the bind. And how my mind works, and my partner's way more visionary than I am, but sometimes I got to get him a check, because I just don't want to put ourselves in a situation where I just fall in love with a deal, but I'm a black and white guy, and I just want to look at the numbers. So that's what I say.
And when you say be conservative, what's the example of being conservative? Some people define conservative differently. Right. So with development, how could you, what you mean by being conservative?
All right, so something simple I think everybody will understand. Let's just say on an ARV, you're looking at 3 comps, right, to sell a property. And, same square footage and all that good stuff. You got one property that's 100, one property is 90, that's sold, one property 90, one property 100, on another property 110, okay? For your particular property, what value do you use, okay? I mean, some individuals, it's $100,000, which is the average. For some individuals, they're gonna push the limit and do 110, and some individuals, it's gonna be 90. For me in particular, I'm gonna go off the 90 figure. If it's I take that 90, if I get a construction estimate from a contractor, they give me $50,000, I'm gonna run my numbers on $60,000, so it's just tweaks like that where I always go in underwriting a deal like that, because that's my wish list. But once I get more information and the numbers are getting tight, then you can back down and then adjust accordingly. So never start at the best case scenario when you underwrite a deal. Just start at a conservative one and then just work your way down, because it's easier to work your way down versus working your way up.
So how y'all manage that dilemma, right? So you got a company, you got employees, you got a visionary, you got a vision. So we got to keep buying. We can't stop buying. Right. So how do you manage that dilemma of the numbers is right here for us to make money, or it could be here for us to lose money? In reality, how y'all kind of manage that gap to make sure y'all could keep going with acquisitions? What does that reality look like?
That's a very good question. So, and I'm gonna answer that really good, but I think it's a good tidbit. How many partners do we have in a room? Like you with your partner, and y'all have an operation. See Elrich, my man back there. All right, so I guarantee, and it's probably like a 90% chance, that let's just say you have 2 partners that own the company. One of y'all is a straight visionary, meaning, look, you don't give a rat's ass how we gonna make it work. I just want it. I see C, that's all I see. And then you have another partner with like, yo, hold on. How do we make this work? This is how you do this, this, and this. So I guarantee if you got 2 partners, that's how it is. So for me and Michael in particular, Mike is what you call a visionary, and I'm what you call an integrator. And the book Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman really does a really good job of breaking this down. So, it took us like 5 years in our business to really learn this concept, but getting to your point is Michael's purpose in the organization, like he's the face of the organization. He chasing deals, raising money, you know, he heads up the acquisition side of our business. Me, I'm what you call the integrator. All these employees, process, systems, back office, that's what I serve. So typically you got a CEO who's more of the visionary, and you got a COO, which is sort of like myself, which is the integrator. So with an organization such as ours, which you're absolutely right, I mean, I have 35 employees that we have to pay on a monthly basis. It's really, for us at this point here, knowing our roles. Well, as long as Mike doing his part of the business, I'm damn sure gonna do my part of the business. And this has been a success for us. So that's at like a 30,000 square feet answer to your question.
So what's the 300 square foot answer to that question?
Man,
managing the dilemma. So or do we just go after bigger deals with better numbers? Do we go outside of our area?
So
that's what I mean. How you
right.
manage the dilemma? What's some ways y'all have managed
So
that dilemma?
I'll say this. So I'm gonna answer it two ways. I'm gonna answer currently where we at and then where we was. So currently right now we've been super blessed where, you know, we are in a financial position where we don't have to chase deals, which I think that's the goal for everybody in this room. But it definitely hasn't always been like that. So that's currently where we at. And by us being in that position, and then how we in that position, just everybody think about cash reserves, whether you got a business account or your personal. Like when you have cash in the bank, you're just able to make way more strategic plays where you don't have to chase deals or fudge the numbers or do an underwriting deal where you going off that $110,000 purchase price. So that's now. Back then, though, you know, where our situation wasn't as good as it is right now, it really just took, you know, it was more visionary than integrating. And what I mean by that is like, yo, we were running these deals on this $110,000. Because guess what? One, we had to pay the bills. We had to keep making the deals work. But kind of, I think, what maybe separates us from maybe other people is once we learned that we were pregnant, and what I mean by pregnant in the deal, you hell and high water, we're going to figure out how to make it work. And that's what we did. And, you know, we've been super blessed where we have absolutely took our haircuts, but, you know, we had some really good home runs as well, too. So, you know, that's what I would say, you know, in our previous working environment, like, it's just really getting in there and just figuring out how to make it work, man.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh,
That-
well,
that's the
I can, if y'all want to go there, I can go there all day long. You got to make it work,
Yeah,
man.
perfect. So tell us about managing talent on site. So acquisitions is one thing, financing, we're gonna get to raising capital.
Right.
But when the boots hit the ground and the hands hit the doorknobs, what you learn about managing the labor on site to make sure you get to the finish line?
Ooh, very, very good question. So, I first start with this, you know, and I tell you, and y'all probably already heard this sentence before, is, you know, real estate not hard at all. Like, you can do that all day long. You wanna know what's hard? People, labor, and whether that's tenants, employees, whatever. So like, so you're dealing with a guy's creation, a human being that's just as complex as ever. So with that being said, for me in particular, like, I think God really blessed me with this talent. But like, I really, truly, what's the best way to put this? Like, I really do care about people. You know, whether it's my tenants, my employees, my subcontractors, whatever. And you know, that's one that naturally comes to me. But I think with that skill set, like, I was really able to squeeze out a lot of stuff from people that probably for somebody else they wasn't able to squeeze. So that's like more the soft way. Tangibly or practically speaking, like, you just got to stay on top of people, man. Like, you just can't take anything for granted. Like any other relationship, they got to gain your trust, and you got to gain theirs. But I just always stay on top of people, coach them up where I can, and like hold them accountable. Like, I can't stress enough how important it is to hold people accountable. It's important.
So you mean to tell me, even though I got cash in the bank, I still need to be on site with my project? I still need to be involved?
Yeah, absolutely.
With the project? Okay.
And so let me back. So, I was able to put this is so even with me having all these employees, like, I still actively like make site visits. Now, by all means, it's not as frequent as it was back at our first 26-unit apartment complex, but
in my position, at least what I do for the organization, I do like to go on site. And it's not even necessarily the running jobs or anything. At the level I'm at right now is more so for my team to see me so they can just see, one, that I care about them. I care about what they're doing. And, you know, it is a little check and balance as well, too, just to see what's going on. But 5 years ago, me and Mike, or maybe a couple employees, absolutely 100%. If I'm signing my personal guarantee on a $800,000 loan, you best believe I'm about to be out there and see what's going on. And if it's subs or tenants or whoever, like, absolutely, I want to be out there. But when I say that, like, for individuals that don't want to go that lane, you still can be super successful. Like, I checked in on our career path, like, we vertically integrated where we have a property management, ownership, and construction company. But some people just want to strictly be an owner, which is okay. But for us in particular, that was like the approach that we took. And it has its pros and it also has its cons, but that's the lens that I'm coming from when I speak and give my personal experience.
And you talked earlier about leading and lagging indicators. What were you tracking, or what are you tracking for those subcontractors and that labor on site to make sure the projects stay on budget and on time?
So so when you think about construction in general, it's three important things: is budget, schedule, and quality. So let's first talk about on the schedule side. For anybody, a really, really good leading indicator to track your schedule, in particular if you project managing subs, or even if you project managing a general contractor, is just track how many guys are on site on a daily basis. If you look at a 5-day time period, right, and you got one guy showing up to work, a labor or a tech, a skilled tech, or whatever, showing up every day, one guy, but the job really requires 4 guys a day, you losing 75% production on a daily basis. You know, that's how I wanted you guys to think when y'all thinking about this stuff. So that's like a really good leading indicator to like track production and tracking schedules.
How you tracking that 75%? How you know it's 75%? How you quantify that missing work, that missing production?
Right, so it's very rough, right? So apples and oranges, you got the same production for each guy, and that general contractor or sub told you, like, to get this done in a week, because I always ask them, like, if they say it's going to take me 5 days, the next question I ask is, how many guys is it going to take for you to do this? And if he tells me 4, this is a sub or whoever, if he tells me 4, that's where my mind going. So that's the benchmark. So if you got 4 guys that's supposed to be showing up on a daily basis, but only one guy shows up, you see 25%, so that's where the 75% production comes in. And that's very rough by all means. But it just kind of just, like I said, I'm an engineer by trade, so I think about everything and like engineer, but it's worked to my advantage. So like that's what you got to really get in that mindset to really like master this thing.
And what about budget? So what you tracking on budget weekly?
So
for a project?
All right, so I'm not gonna talk about then. I'm gonna talk about back then. And the leading indicator on that is if I got money in my bank account. I mean, straight up, I'm talking all this smack right now, y'all. But for one minute, I just want y'all to understand. Like, we started with a Fourplex, so it may sound sophisticated now, but it took 10, 11 years and just a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to be where we at right now. But back then, you know, it really was, because we didn't have sophistication we have right now. So it really was like, yo, how my bank account looking, right? So it may not be the sexiest leading indicator, but for us, that's what it was. I really didn't find out how we did that till after the job, like when I get my books closed up and everything. So that's real talk. That's what it was, man. How much cash I got in the bank. And that's an absolute horrible way to run your business, by the way.
So and how you qualifying quality, what tools you using to bring all this together? The budget, labor, and quantity. You tracking this in the software? What tools you using?
All right, so now I think it's more value I talk about right now, and I'm gonna try to put it to a more doable route. So on the quality, so quality wise, like, I mean, this is what I told you guys is like, you really just got to get out there and just learn, whether you're a flipper, a wholesaler, or whatever, so you can actually understand what quality is. So that's what like the first starting point. If you look at a wall of sheetrock and you doing a punch list, how do you know what's good and what's not good? So the first step is just learning what quality looks like to you or whatever your product, whether it's a flip or a rental or whatever. So that's like the fundamental. But from that fundamental, tracking quality is, if you want to like centralize it and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Put it in, yeah, it's different softwares out there that you can use, okay? Now, probably at this, build it's something like, just Google, Build a Trend. Yeah, just Google construction management softwares, and they got a plethora of them out there where they have different tools where you can like take pictures and send it to your contractor and stuff like that, where you can really hone in on quality.
Well, what's the example? So what's the one you used early on, and
Okay.
how were you able to track and scale before you got to the one you're using right now?
All right, so right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and number back. So right now we're using Procore, okay? But Procore is, and truth be told, actually our construction company is actually bigger than the real estate company. And a lot of people don't even know that, but we use what you call Procore. That's like a super robust construction management software. But early on, we use, it's a software I want to call, say, Livewire, and it's very, very user-friendly, where you can do inspections and take pictures, and you'll be able to export it to a PDF. So that was one that we used early on, and what happens is, on your iPhone or iPad, you go out there, take all these pictures and everything, get back to your computer, create a report, and whether you managing subs or you got a general contractor, you can provide them this easy-to-read report that says fix hole in sheetrock with an exact picture of what needs to get done, so you can just give it to them black and white. So when you go back and do your other inspection, you'll be able to just check it off.
I want to go back to multifamily real quick. What tools y'all using in multifamily to manage quality control? Or that,
All right,
what
so-
softwares y'all using?
So this software right here that I'm about to recommend, you can actually use this if you got a duplex, if you got hundreds of units. We use a property management software called Buildium. And Buildium for us is I tried y'all and all the more complicated ones, but for me at least, Buildium is one of the more user-friendly property management softwares. And from there, you know, they got a QC, a quality component where, you know, you can do inspections. But what I really like about it is, you know, the tenant management part of it, where, you know, you got tenant ledgers, rent roll, delinquent balances, and all that good stuff.
Good stuff. So tell us about this Bienville Project. So all the lessons that you just explained, as far as being on budget, as far as managing quality, managing labor, what did that experience look like? Tell us the story about Bienville, and then tell us the lessons learned on those three lead indicators of quality, budget, and labor.
Okay. Now, very, very good question, Emil. And when you asked that, I just shivered, because Bienville for us is like that project, right? And when I say that project, I'm not saying that in a good way. But I say that project, but and it's a silver line there, because by that project, you know, we got all the lessons learned in the world. So y'all probably heard the sentence where you learn some stuff when you take the W's, but you learn the most when you take the L's. So for this particular project, it was a project in Mid-City where we developed 20 condos that we sold off. So going back to that point where I told you about falling in love with projects, this is like prime example of fall in love type of project. So it was a speculative project where, and like I mentioned earlier, speculative is, you know, we build it to sell. And so first and foremost, we became partners with people that we really didn't know. And that part, when the heat cranked up, that partnership went bad, you know, and so bad to the fact where I'm a guy where, I mean, I'm a man of character, right? So I believe in integrity. I believe in, you know, working hard. I believe in all that good stuff. And I believe my word is bond, you know, but we were partners with guys that necessarily didn't think that way. Like, they were one of the type of guys where, like, they sharks. I mean, in capitalist society where, like, they in it for themselves. No holds barred. So when the heat really cranked up on that particular project, things didn't go good. So that's one thing we had going against us. The second thing was, on that particular project, we decided to serve as the general contractor and the owner. And remember, on the ownership side, we're partnering with these guys who really didn't have our best interests, but on the construction side, it was 100% us. And that was the first project of that magnitude that we ever done, and we bid out way more than we can chew. So I'm giving y'all all these whammies. So the first whammy, we in bed with people that's not so good. The second one, we bid off a project that we had absolutely no reason got them going after of as a general contractor. So once we get in the construction side of it, I mean, when it comes to quality, budget, and schedule, if we had to get a grade, I'd give us an F minus 100% on all three of them. On all three of them. So boom, that hit us. On the construction side, I mean, we were losing badly, okay? So that's another one. Now, when we finally got to sell the property, you know, going back to the underwriting that we went over earlier, where we underwrite the property at the best case scenarios, right? And that's me falling in love, right? Or us falling in love with the property. So when we get to sell, we wasn't able to, so initially we was gonna sell them off as condos, and we wasn't getting any activity selling them off as condos. So it just so happened that our broker had a relationship for a guy that's looking to do 20 Airbnbs or 20 STRs, and we was to end up finding a buyer that bought all 20 of the condos at once. So, you know, it absolutely wasn't the price, initially wasn't the price that we were looking for, but, you know, at least just get us out of the deal, because at that point, the relationship was real bad. So, boom, all right, we got it under contract. We lost a significant amount of money on the construction contract. So our hope was when we sell it, at least we can make some money on the ownership side, okay? So that was like in March or so. So while we had the property under contract to an end buyer, the guy, that's when we was going through the situation with STRs in the city where they was May scratches. So literally this deal was contingent on them passing it. So like we had the deal on the contract for like 3 months just waiting on this decision if they gonna pass the STRs.
And holding costs still going on at this
Holding
point,
costs,
no cash
everything.
flow. Yep.
So check this out though, like this was in March, okay? We got on the contract in March. We had a $7 million balloon that was due in August. Dang, y'all making me feel even worse. So boom, so check this out, right? So that was in March. We had the property under contract for like 3 months waiting on this STR deal. Boom, it came out with a councilman, they grandfathered the property in. So, you know, the owner was still interested, all right? So then that triggered him to start his finance and appraisals and everything like that. So we were supposed to close in August. So like a week and a half prior, to us closing on the deal, and let me back one. We had what you call a dual agent, where the agent brought in the buyer and they'd represent us as a seller. So we disclosed to the agent that, hey, look, we really got to get off this property in August because we got a balloon that's due, okay? So let me just give you that tad bit. So like a week and a half prior to us closing, we get a call from the agent saying, look, the buyer, I don't even know the rationale they gave, but they said they got to drop the purchase price $600,000. But we still can close in August. So man, dude, you understand like the mindset at that given time dealing with these guys for a year and a half. So they really had us in a crunch and we was motivated sellers. So we eventually settled out for like, I think a reduction of $400,000 or whatever. But I put it away, even though I'm a capitalist, like, and I was a buyer, I would never do a move like that. So I'm being, and this is the first time we at a level like this. So I'm being exposed to my partners, been exposed to this guy that pretty much strong arms at the last minute. And you just got to understand all the emotion that we're dealing with. So we eventually closed on the deal where we took the haircut, okay? Now, the story doesn't end there. So at this point that we close, our partners, they controlled all the money, right? So we didn't have access to the bank accounts and stuff. So after we closed the deal, now is the point where they got to distribute the money to all the investors and us as a partner in the deal. Where when it came to find out, now my partners, they strong arming us, because in order for us to get our money that we put into the deal, they say, hey, look, it's y'all fault that this project took so long. It's y'all fault that the seller reduced the price. So y'all we gonna take these losses from the cut that y'all supposed to get. I know y'all feeling me, right? So like, you know, I mean, so look, what can I do at this point? They had the money. We had a legal argument, but anybody knows just going the legal route is even more expensive. So when it was all said and done, we had a year and a half of emotional stress, a year and a half of strife between me and my two business partners, Vincent and Michael. Lost significant amount of money. I'm talking about well into six figures. And I mean, we literally came out of that experience bloody. You know what I mean? Like bloody, beat up. You know, like we had a TKO on us. But that was in 2019, I want to say. So that experience right there, like really, you know, you read these books and everything, talk about those war stories, but that experience in particular, like we thought we went through some stuff prior to that event, but that one right there, really like, guy was like, yo, we gonna see if you really want it. Y'all talk all that smack. Y'all really want a $1 billion company? I'm gonna see how hard you want it. And you know, we here right now, so it's a blessing.
Good stuff, and we're gonna wrap up in a minute. Steve, you can come up with neither one. But I want to end, before we take audience questions too, recruiting and retaining talent, right? So as COO, I know leading the back office, hiring and firing, from when y'all started to where you are now, what you learned about recruiting and retaining talent to maintain a company, maintain a project, maintain the operation. What's your lesson learned on that?
So on the recruiting aspect of it, one of the bigger lessons learned is just understand, one, people are gonna be people, you know, good or bad. That's the first thing. And when it comes to, you know, interviewing an individual, of course they're gonna put their best foot forward. Some people are genuine, but I'm gonna be honest, 80% of them not genuine, from my experience. And it is what it is at this point. So with that being said, just having better internal controls on how to screen out potential new hires and things like that, but also understand it's a numbers game as well too, just like finding the deal. Like if I have an open position, I, historically speaking, have to interview at least 10 people face-to-face on site in order to find that right candidate. And that's just understanding that, and you know, if you interview the first person, yeah, you may get that warm and fuzzy feeling, but just like anything else, people are looking to court you, like they want to make you feel good, and I got burned a lot with that. They stroke your ego, and you know, and you gain trust, and you get burnt a lot. I mean, I've been through a lot of employees, and out of everything, like, man, this is me being vulnerable, like, when it comes to employees in particular, because when I hire someone, I really like treat them as like family. You know what I'm saying? I really do care about them. And some of my biggest heartbreaks is when I hire individuals, gain trust in them, at least did do everything that I thought I can do to help them, and like they just burn you. Like, I've been stolen from, lied to, some of everything under the sun. So you gotta understand, once you scale and you bring employees, you're gonna have those instances, but you're also gonna have those wonderful team members that got your back. And it's just, yeah, you can soak in it, but you gotta keep pushing forward, man.
And what tools you using to recruit? So if I'm looking to hire you, because a lot of people say good work is hard to find, but you still got to put in the work as an executive. So what tools y'all using to at least aggregate those leads?
So right now, to get the leads, we use ZipRecruiter and Indeed. And we've been having good success with those over the last year and a half. Yeah, the job market has been super tight. So we haven't been getting as much leads as we have gotten in the past. But from ZipRecruiter, we have a couple other internal documents like questionnaires and stuff that we use to screen them and then eventually bring them home for an on-site interview.
Yeah, good stuff. Last thing, lessons learned from fundraising. So we pretty much covered acquisitions on multifamily. We covered the approach on development. What was y'all approach back then, and what's y'all approach now on fundraising to get to this part?
All right, very good question. So I'm gonna start that. I'm gonna do two shout outs. One is David Burson. He in the back there. He's our real estate attorney. Like, look, y'all use him if y'all need a real estate attorney, because from day one he's been a guy. He always believed in me and Mike. So forever grateful for him. But the reason I'm bringing him up is because between David Burson always been our attorney, but we have another partner called Dennis Stump. I don't know if anybody knows him, but Dennis Stump on our first property, or second multifamily rather, maybe our first 30 unit or something, he's been our co-sponsor and our partner. So early on in our career, we partnered with Dennis, and he really headed up the fundraising aspect of our organization because he had a really good network of friends and families. But as we scaled and grew, Dennis still does head up a lot of the fundraising, but now we have relationships with like equity funds and institutional funds that Mike got a relationship, or started a relationship with, that we're using on the equity side currently. Yeah. So going back to what I think what would help you guys is, and girls, is man, I think it'd be a good interview too to bring Dennis in, because he's somebody who's partnered with a lot of guys on the sponsorship level. But I think what really gained our trust in Dennis is, me and Mike, one, we're likable, right? Well, I think that's the first thing. But two, like, we always came at professional, like whether it's proposals, how we talk, all that good stuff. And that helped gain our trust with him. So I'm saying to say, if you never even done a deal before, it's all about how you present yourself. Like, even if it was a single family home that we had, maybe $130,000, like, we had like a 10-page proposal just for that $100,000 project. It's just thinking in that manner, where you gotta have a vision for where you want to go in your life or your business career. And like, we always treat it like, it's gonna be an empire. And whether it's a single family home or to where we at right now, we're gonna give it all. We're gonna go the extra mile, and whether it's an investor or employees or whoever, to make sure we can produce.
For the people that don't know, two questions: what's a co-sponsor and what's an equity lender? How they different from a regular mortgage broker or a regular lender?
All right. So a co-sponsor is someone that, several different ways you can skin the cat, but for our relationship in particular, co-sponsor is somebody that you partner up with to get a loan. So our first apartment complex maybe was a $800,000 loan. I mean, we didn't have W-2s at the time, so we couldn't on our own qualify for this loan. So Dennis in particular, he had a strong balance sheet, and we had good credit, but he had good credit as well too. So you typically got to bring those type of individuals on to qualify for a loan from the bank if you starting out, even if you got experience right now. So that's what a co-sponsor is. Equity is when you get to multifamily, you do what you call a syndication, right? So if in our particular case, we have $1 million property we want to buy, we borrow $800,000 from the bank, that leaves $200,000 in cash that we need to close on that loan. So that $200,000, we definitely didn't have it at the time. So that's where we go to someone like a Dennis to say, Dennis, look, we need to raise $200,000. And through his network, he's able to raise that $200,000 to bring to the deal so we can close on it.
And how you quantify the returns to a partner like that? So if I'm an investor, I'm starting to build traction, people see me on social media, they approach me, hey, I want to be a partner, we find a deal,
Right.
This 20%, this person don't know what to ask for, I don't know what to offer. How do you quantify what to offer for that position of credit, balance sheet, but they're not going to be involved in the project at all, they're just a silent partner. So how do you kind of put that, a number to that relationship?
Got it. Very, very good question. So I want y'all to imagine a pie chart, okay? For everybody to understand what a pie chart is, engineering coming in. Where back in school, you have 10% here, 5% here, and so on and so forth. So I want you to think about 100% pie, okay? And let's just say you want to take down $1 million multifamily deal, okay? And you want to raise 100%, I mean, you have the debt, which is the bank, okay, but I'm talking about the equity in particular, and you have $200,000 you have to raise. So what my proposition going to be to our investors or our co-sponsors may be, okay, I have 100% pie. 50% of the deal goes to the investors. So if they give me $200,000, they own 50% of the deal. So now that leaves 50% left, okay? So then for someone such as a Dennis or a co-sponsor, I may go to them and say, hey, look, Dennis, you get 20% of the deal for co-signing on a loan and raising the money. So now that leaves 30% of the deal, and that 30% of the deal can be for asset managers, bringing the deal to the table, overseeing the construction, you know, all that can be what you get for that 30%. So that's how you carve it out. But typically speaking, for a co-sponsor, you're probably looking at like that 5 to 15% range that you will carve out. Carve out is what I'm talking about right now. Carve out the deal to them.
Good stuff. We're going to take audience questions, but man, we want to thank you for your time for coming out. How can the group help you? What you looking for right now?
All right, cool. So right now, man, we are in the market for like single family homes, like just to buy and flip. You know, it's kind of a play. Of course, you know, we are looking for multifamily as well too, apartment complex, you know, like 50 units or greater is really our sweet spot. So now I'd say those are two biggest things. And then third but not least, I mean, whether you're new or you have experience, just like pay it forward. I mean, I think where it's at, and I'm really enjoying this talk, and hopefully, you know, whether you have 2 units or 5 units, just drop knowledge with other people. I think that's what it's about.
Good stuff. Steve, you could come up. We're going to take hands for questions. So the question is, what's the thought process behind the culture that's being put out on social media with LinkedIn?
All right, so Steve, to answer so let me just first start with this, Steve. Like when it comes to like marketing, that's absolutely not my strong suit. So we actually have a marketing director that like really heads that up, Steve. But the content itself, you know, at VPG, we pride, one of our key slogans is like, you come to work as you are. And what I mean by that, you got to be authentic. So to Steve, your point, like just really capturing VPG at its core. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just so happy and been blessed with my 2 business partners are my 2 best friends. So like, it's like a frat house at work, and we just like joking and stuff. But you know, that's us. That's our culture. It may work for some, but for at least it works. So Steve, what you're seeing is just like VPG at its core. Like, man, we want you to be yourself if you work with us or be partners with us. Good, Steve? Thank you, man.
Next question. So the question is, how do you keep your head when you lose cash on a project or you having cash flow challenges before, during, and after a project?
Okay, very, very good question, my man. And by the way, like, so what are you talking about? I was selling Girl Scout cookies at one of the apartment companies. So like, that's like my wife, I got three young girls. Like, that's literally like my real job. I don't start work till like after 5 o'clock. So I just want everybody to know that. So that's what it was, man. Appreciate it too. But to your point, man, it goes back to like our first part of our session where, man, it's just like a mindset, right? Where by really, I mean, I'm a man of faith, so I do a lot of prayer and go to church and things like that. But even with that, like, you got to educate yourself and like really pour into yourself mentally. So between motivational speeches, podcasts, reading and stuff like that right there is like the foundation, okay? And by me just investing in my mind, when it comes to them L's that you definitely bound to take, it's easy to absorb. Because if I read 10 books where 10 different entrepreneurs told me like, yo, you about to have some serious losses, when I do take that loss, it's like, okay, this part of the business. I must be making the right steps forward if I'm taking losses. I'm out of my comfort zone. So that's what I'll say to that, my man. And last but not least, and just being surrounded by guys that just want it, or guys or girls that just want it and it's out there to get it, to lift you up. Like I said, I got 2 business partners. Like, man, if we weren't those 2 guys, like, absolutely, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So we just pick each other up and we just grind together. So that also helps out a lot too.
Next question. Question is,
Okay, yeah.
how do we get in touch with you?
All right, so, I mean, deals, whatever, like everybody else, and I mean, I'm gonna just leave my business cards like right here, and you know, just holler at me. I mean, I
Start
don't
with
have
your
to be-
email address.
Oh, email address, A Lewis, ALEWIS, at various, V as in Victor, E as in Echo, RIUS, property, which is singular.com. So A Lewis at variousproperty.com.
So wholesalers, make sure you add that information to your
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Multifamily brokers, agents, make sure you add that email to your list. We got time for 2 more questions.
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
If you are a wholesaler, I am interested in talking to you after this session if you have business cards. So I want to say that too.
Next question. Yep. The
Real-
question
oh,
is,
sorry.
do you look at cap rates whenever you're looking at multifamily?
Oh, absolutely. My man
All right.
getting technical here. I like that.
And what's your approach to cap rates when you buy?
It varies. I mean, so for some back. So for everybody to understand, like when you talk about multifamily, cap rate is it's a number that's used to determine the value of a multifamily property. So that's like a very high level explanation of a cap rate. But to answer your question, it really depends like on the type of property that I'm buying. So when I look at a cap rate, typically speaking, how we buy our properties, we like to make our value, add value rather just seeing like the stressed multifamily. So when I buy properties, I look at the cap rate, but I don't look to make money off the cap rate by going from an 8 cap rate to a 7 cap rate. It's a straight net operating income play for us. So it's absolutely important, but we put more value on looking at the current net operating income and seeing if we can increase it.
And one more question on cap rates. So when you talked about being conservative, y'all are conservative with cap rates too, when you look at it?
I say yes, but I also say like, man, cap rates is one of the more complicated things to figure out. So we are more conservative on what you call the net operating income side versus the cap rate. So we have like a standard, not standard cap rate, but given a given market, we use a cap rate, but we really just don't play around that much. The real brain power goes in the net operating income.
I got one more question.
what you got, boss?
On the net operating income, what you learned that a lot of, especially those distressed owners that you bought from, what do you learn that's the reality behind those numbers? And you're smiling because you know where I'm getting at. So with people that have that bottom line net operating income, that's a vanity number a lot of times, because if it wasn't, y'all wouldn't be buying it from them. So what have you learned the reality behind those numbers with those net operating income with those multifamilies?
Okay, so let me back again. So for everyone that doesn't know what a net operating income is pretty much your rents minus all the expenses associated with the property. But when I say expenses, it's not like your mortgage payment or your interest. It's just all the other expenses. And when it comes to commercial or multifamily real estate, the goal is to get the highest net operating income as possible. Okay, so that's like a simple explanation. So to Emil's point, understanding that if you got a unrealistic net operating income, it's going to affect the value of that particular property. So just like everything else, Emil, is I talk about now and then. So now we have enough historical data where we're able to size up a profit and loss statement that's provided to us from a broker or a seller, where we can make some guesses. First property that we ever bought, I'm gonna be honest, it was a lot of going on the seller's word, a lot of going on the seller's profit and loss statement, and like everything else, you live and you learn. And it's fortunate enough that even with those profit and loss statements, we made the good decisions to still have some safety factors in place. But I'm gonna be honest, if I went off a lot of these sellers' numbers, we absolutely would have been in the bind.
And how you use that number as a weapon, as far as projecting what the property should do, and with acquisitions. Like, why is that number important?
I mean, net operating income, absolutely everything when it comes to multifamily. Like, so on the single family side, compared to how you come up with the value of what's selling in the property, when it comes to multifamily, it's all on how profitable that property is. You gotta understand, you are buying a business when it comes to multifamily. You're buying an income stream. So the higher the income stream, the more value a property is. So for us in particular, understanding that we're owners, we have a property management company, and we have a construction company. When it comes to net operating income, the first thing is, probably compared to other multifamily operators, I have a whole lot of more data that I can use to underwrite deals and dissect where we can squeeze more profits at, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, by us having this vertically integrated company, and by me controlling all the buckets, like, I know what calls to make, and I don't have to get this approval or this approval or try to negotiate out with a contractor, because I know the price points, I know what it's gonna take, and that is a huge competitive advantage that we have in this local market by just really like having all these numbers that we can operate on.
Yeah, good stuff. One more question?
All right.
All right. All right. Well, thank you again, man. Everybody give it up for Andre. Yes.